Good evening. I'd like to call to order this Tuesday, April 19, 2022, regular meeting of the Canal Winchester School Board. Please call the roll.
Barnes.
Here.
Beller. Here. George.
Here.
Berger.
Present.
Here.
Pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda this evening?
No, we have no additions or deletions.
Move on to item number 5, which is the approval. So I'm going to need a motion to approve the agenda this evening.
So move. Second.
Motion and second. Roberts, please call the roll.
Canal.
Yes.
Berger.
Yes.
Ms. Barnes.
Yes.
Beller.
Yes.
George.
Yes.
Passes 5-0. We're going to move on to presentations this evening. So first up, we have a presentation from the Canal Winchester Middle School, and we have Mrs. Kelly Zifchek here this evening.
Good afternoon. I am Kelly Zifchek, the principal at Canal Winchester Middle School, and tonight I would like to highlight our 8th grade social studies department. During the pandemic, I challenged my staff to think differently, and my 8th grade social studies department's response was to try a flipped classroom. And so just so everyone knows what a flipped classroom is, it's a type of blended learning where students are introduced to content at home and practice working through it at school. This is the reverse of the more common practice of introducing new content at school and assigning homework and projects to be completed by the students independently at home. My social studies teachers are also track coaches. They are currently at track practice right now. So here is a video they put together to share their experience of implementing a flipped classroom in 8th grade social studies. So you'll hear a little bit about our students' response, and you can also see their love for American history as well.
Right there. Yep.
Good evening. I'm Mike Stone. King Richards. I'm Ken Phillips, better known as Team Awesome. We went into classroom. It's random. So we had to kind of adapt. Into last school year with the schedule that the district was providing and the suggestions of the district, we decided to go full blow into the flip. Really liked all. Then going into this school year with a we've really liked the results that we've seen so far in the school year and plan on implementing it with even more excitement and new things going into
really classroom. Essentially front loading the like classroom assigned readings, lecture, notes, being able to zero in on class, have a arrow, other collectivities such as like classroom, other things that this like is that when they favorite things.
But rather than hear just from us, we'd like you to hear from some of our students as well, so we're going to turn it over to them. Thanks.
Have a good night.
Take it away.
As I already know different classes. Ask
I'd like
projects class. That's okay. We can go at our own pace.
In the classroom, I have liked doing it at home, being able to use it in the test. I also like being class discussion. I feel like I'm a lot more. The most benefit of the classroom is that if I didn't and in class, actually
All right, so let's talk strategy. Strategy is crucial to a war environment. One of the key factors of the Patriots winning the war. The British tactics of the war were lining up front row fires, the bayonet, dogs while reloading, while the person trying to fire dogs, etc. This is a great tactic when fighting in an open field, but not so much in the restraints of the woods, where there's like literally no cover. Now the Patriots used guerrilla warfare, just hiding in the trees and bushes, and as like a quick hit and hide, load, relocate, refire sort of strategy. This was a great strategy in tight areas like the woods, because there are lots of natural hiding spots. The British, however, refused to change their fighting style.
Thank you. Any questions? And as you can see, they're very passionate about their content area they teach.
You said, are these mostly 8th graders doing this, or are these all of our middle school opportunities?
This is just one department of mine that wanted to try something different, so they're kind of piloting it to see how the students responded to it. I would say the biggest change for them was they had to come do more of the work at home and come prepared for the discussion, so it's definitely been a learning curve for students, but last year and this year I've definitely impressed of how prepared they are and how they've really embraced the learning curve. And they, as you heard, one of the students said she really liked the notes, but when I've covered for the classes, especially at the beginning of the year, they go, Mrs. Beck, you have to talk to your social studies teachers about the notes. It's way too many. But as you know, if they take more notes, they retain the information and they do better on their assessment. So they just had to see that for themselves.
How did this work for students who didn't have access to the internet?
Most of our students do have access to internet. If they don't, we provide Khajiits from our library for them. Then we also have a connections period and also a flex period between lunch, so they can have that time to work assignments.
One other question: do you foresee like doing this long term? Like I would imagine next year you like to see classroom. So is this something you think you incorporate in schools?
I would say it probably depends on the content area. So definitely with social studies, language arts, they already do a lot of that as well. So we have pockets of it, but just probably being more consistent with what it looks like at school level. I would like to see more of it. I would say it works better with my 8th graders, 6th graders. Don't know if we're there yet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and we're going to move on to our next presentation, which is going to be from CWLS.
Good evening. My name is Audrey Rice. I'm the secretary of CWEA, if you don't know. I have a couple updates from our elementary schools. Indian Trail, Mrs. Behrman, Fairchild, Stewart, and Moneypenny's classes did a March Madness Eric Carle style for our March feature author illustrator. They read 16 of his books and students voted. They are also working on animal research writing, fractions and math, and gearing up for end-of-year testing. Mrs. Moneypenny's class went to the gardens on March 28th. They weeded the thistle. Then we planted 3 lima beans, plants that we had grown in our classroom. They also painted more lima beans, spinach, and lettuce. On April 8th, they used Ohio Days gardening kits from the Franklin County Public Health Department, and the students received the kits with a ruler, magnifying glass, pencil, spoon, carrot seeds, and soil. They put together kits in the class, and they will watch them sprout before sending them home. They took extra carrot seeds to plant in their own gardens, along with the ruler and magnifying glass, pencil, and spoon. This was a wonderful activity that the health department put together. At Winchester Trail, the 3rd graders are hatching their chicks and planting seeds this month. These hands-on learning experiences are teaching us all about life cycles and the needs of living things. In 5th grade, Mrs. Ford's ELA classes just finished reading and studying the novel Tuck Everlasting. The day before spring break, they watched the movie and compared it to the book. Mrs. Thompson's math classes took part in this by using their math skills to measure, mix, and make flapjacks, as mentioned that the family ate often in the book. Mrs. Ford, Miss Messina, and Mrs. Thompson had a fun day celebrating the end of the novel with cross-curricular activities for their classes. And that's the updates that I have.
Okay. Now we're going to move on to public comments. So public voice. So it does look like we have 2 public voice. So just to be clear, we're going to go with 3 minutes. I know 3 minutes is the duration of time. And let me just make sure. So to interrupt, I'll go through just through the policies first. So clear, guys. Just be clear, there is going to be no obstruction created between the board and the audience. Interruptions, termination. So basically, we won't be able to answer questions. I want to make sure I explain that to the people listening at home. So obviously, our policy is to listen to the public voice. We will listen to it, and then if it's something we can answer during the course of the meeting, we will. But typically, we don't do a question and answer. So we'll obviously let you come up, get your 3 minutes to present, and then we'll ask you to sit down. And do we have a timer this evening? Coming up.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, wonderful. All right, so the first person. Okay, and Mr. Pierce is going to give you a 1 minute warning. So our first public speaker is going to be Mr. Patrick Shea.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Patrick Shea. I live at 140 Kramer Street, resident of the district for almost 19 years. I tried to add up how much I've paid in taxes to y'all over that time period, but I got so mad I stopped. First off, thank you, really, thank you all of you for the job that you did, all of you in the back of the room did during COVID. This was a hellacious time to run any kind of enterprise, let alone an education system where you're dealing with emotional, scared people who are concerned about the welfare of their children. and my hat's off to you, quite literally, for how you navigated that. Thank you. I also appreciate, as a parent of children in the district, financial stewardship that you have shown in terms of not having any additional tax levies placed on us in over 10 years. Thank you very much. I also would like to speak tonight about Resolution 422 that has been put forth before the board this evening. As many of you may know, I am on City Council, and I have great concern for the future of our city and for our school district if we were allowed to let this land leave the city and the school district and go to the city of Columbus. And I just wanted to say thank you to the board for supporting the effort to keep the community whole, keep our potential revenue streams and our fiscal stewardship in a good position. Other than that, thank you so much for the very difficult job you do, especially those of you who were elected and got your butts yelled at all through COVID about masks and such. Thanks for sitting here and being here for the kids, okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. And then the second person, and I believe Brian Malowinski. Malinowski. Sorry about that.
My name is Brian Malinowski. I'm a resident of Canal, Winchester. I've resided here for 8 years now. I have a 7th grader going into 8th soon and a 2nd grader here in the Canal Winchester School District. Like many residents, we value our school district and the teachers and our teaching community. And I think last night I had an opportunity to talk about Resolution 422 at City Council. I felt it appropriate there to be a voice of a resident when I spoke, and I felt compelled to come here tonight just to speak on behalf of the importance I think it is for us to capture that property or keep that property under annex for the future growth of Canal Winchester and sustainability of our school district. So that's really all I wanted to come out and say. Pledge my support for that as a resident. I think more people should be doing that here in the community, but I'm one of those that are really concerned about this. So thank you.
I do believe that is it for public voice this evening. So we are going to move on to executive report. So the first report is our treasurer's report this evening.
Good evening. Try to be brief tonight. We'll have a financial forecast update. Watson, here to zoom in the revenues. But the main thing I want to highlight here is this decrease in tangible personal property, known as TUP, or utility values. That was down $537,000, and it was very concerning to me because for 5 straight years we had received the same amount time after time after time. Those are your most taxpayers in the district because they're your Columbia Gases, your APs. We have a pipeline going through the district. And I finally found and confirmed that a taxpayer that had been paying the full tax bill in the first half every single year for the last 5 years decided to only pay the first half of the bill. So the rest of the money is coming. It'll just be in the next fiscal year. So we'll see a decrease to 1.5 where we've typically seen 2 million, but next year we'll be looking at a 2.5 million. So we'll see the increase next year, and then we'll get back to the standard 2 million, assuming they stay with the same payment cycle, paying the first half. That was really the alarming piece. We have our 4th and final quarter of our income taxes coming here in another 2 weeks at the end of April, so we'll know exactly where we stand with that. So with the forecast next month, we should have about 90% of our revenue forecast locked up to know exactly where we're trending. As far as expenditures, we continue to track exactly where we forecasted. Should be about 72% through the first part of this year, and that's exactly where we are, sitting with a cash balance of $45.7 million. If you want to go to the next report, Mr. Watson, year over year, we can kind of see this glare out. So as I talked about, you collected almost $0.1 million last year, the $550,000 decrease. That will be next year. Some taxes are up 23,000. Overall revenues even with some pretty big decreases. We're up 202,000, less than but also expenditures are up less than 1%, mainly due to transitioning some employees over into the ESSER funds, which we will have for 2 more years after this fiscal. So it's a big help to have the ESSER funds. Looked at it today with we're paying 38 employees out of ESSER. 20 of them were either new or from a different fund. 18 of them were taken over from the general fund. Sure how we'll do it next year, because we have 10 to 12 new staff coming in. They switch, transition folks into it, but either way, we'll still be paying about the same. Any questions on the general fund and forecast side of the financials?
Do you know why they decided not to pay what they normally have paid in the past? Why they're only paying half now?
That's how. I mean, that's the due. That's they were paying early before, so they just got back to paying the normal schedule. They paid their full bill in the first half,
Okay.
so they're going to pay their first half and then second half. So
So
I don't know if they had a cash flow that allowed them to go ahead and pay full tax bill for several years. But
They've been paying and now they only paid half. But do we know what the risk was? Why they decided only to pay half?
But they're not delinquent because the second half of the tax bill is not due until June. I didn't dig that deep because I didn't want to know who it was. Weren't delinquent. Had they been delinquent, I dug a little. Dig any further. I just needed to confirm that loss was due to someone not paying in the first half that had paid. Check on for the forecast. I didn't want to just assume and not be true. Confirmation.
So Nick, I do have a question. So you mentioned that we're currently paying 38 staff out of the ESSER funds. Is there any other area as far as our finances that where we're using the ESSER funds and we're gonna, after a couple of years, gonna have to maybe move it over to the general fund? Are there any other areas that may be impacted other than staffing?
No.
As far as the ESSER funds go?
Nope, that's we only do salaries and benefits out of federal funds typically because there's a lot of red tape you have to do when you're doing buy purchases. You have to do micro purchasing, macro purchasing, quotes and bids. Even if you're only quotes only $700, you have multiple quotes, multiple bids. Go through a lot of process. So when I deal with federal funds, I just typically pay salaries and benefits from those most restricted. I use general fund for other things that for less restricted money that stuff with.
Okay, so it should be like a smooth transition.
Yeah, in the forecast next month, you'll see a pretty significant increase in salaries and benefits 3 years from now. Forecasted in, bring those employees back.
So those funds, the next 2 years, so obviously.
Correct.
At that point, we'll make some.
Yep. So, any other questions to the general fund financial report?
Of the 38 employees that are being paid out of the ESSER funds, how many of that 38 are net new employees?
Probably about 10 this year.
Okay.
Yeah. 8 of them had never been in the general fund.
Okay.
We had other federal funds before.
Sure.
That we had those in. So there's technically 18 that have never been paid from general fund.
Okay. Okay. So that'd be 18 and 24 25 then, that would be moved over from
Correct.
ESSER to general,
Actually, all 38.
assuming no other funding becomes available.
Correct. Yep. That's what we don't know.
Okay.
Actually, all 38 will come back, but 18 would be
Net new.
for the first time ever paid
Right.
from general fund
Okay.
in 2025.
Okay.
I just have one question. The prior period for general property tax versus the current period for general property tax seems to be up 5.5%. Do we know if that's going to go up any further based on the escalated values of properties right now, or is this considering that or no?
Yeah, that's what drives this line item. Tax rate and your valuation. Our tax rate can go down. So values can go up over the last 4 to 5 years. That is projected in the forecast. Values will. I've talked to several real estate agents in this area and then Central Ohio, just asking them if they foresee some sort of real estate crash in the next few years, and they say absolutely not. The stock of houses, I actually talked to one of the Canal real estate agents that was at the Chamber of Commerce. The stock of home is not available in any area in Central Ohio. That as soon as a house comes on the market in Canal, Winchester, it's sold within 72 hours with multiple offers over asking. They don't foresee that changing. Somebody gave me a stat, I don't know if it's exactly right, where there's over 10,000 real estate agents and only less than 3,000 stock houses. So it's a pretty tough market for real estate agents right now to get their hands on stock.
On the Fairfield County side, they do a triennial evaluation, the auditor's office does, and that'll actually happen this year. Should happen, because it happened in 19. So the triennial evaluation raise every property value in Franklin County, and that'll be set for until 25 when they.
Yeah, we've seen the triennial growth, but we have some significant new construction. Our new construction growth this year was very significant. Residential, a little bit of commercial, not much industrial, but we continue to produce on new construction. That is a true net savings to taxpayers. New construction happens, that value raises our emergency levy and our bond levies. 6 years ago when I got here, our rate was around 52, 53 mills, and it's down to 40 change now. Our millage has dropped 12. It's $12 per $1,000. That's pretty tremendous on a decrease in property tax. And that continues. That's going to continue to happen. Values go up. Kind of the beauty of the emergency levy that we have is such a huge levy for us. But as values go up, taxpayers save. As new construction comes in, taxpayers save. Looked at it when it was first passed in 2009. The village for that levy was 14.85. It's down to almost right now. Dropped over 4 mills in 2009. Pull up the insurance report if you don't care. Mr. Watson, we'll go over that briefly. So year over year, revenues are up. We changed the premiums did increase January 1st. Claims have actually dialed back a little bit. Year over year, we're up $92,000, 2.2%. Overall, up 2.5%. Health insurance cash balance of 2.2%. Strong. We do have some things that we're looking at that we will eventually bring to WEA and to the board as potential things moving into the future to save and establish better long-term trend and cost to members. I think there's some good possibilities. It's just a matter of if it works for our district or not. That very closely. We have what appears to be 3 good options at this time. We'll know here in next month. We're waiting on one final option with a consortium. They allow us in. Once they give us the green light, then we'll put everything together and bring it forward. Work with the insurance committee. They like it. They go back out to WEA and the other unions. talk to the board. Possibly looking at something January 1st, but could be later depending on discussion.
Total number of bodies, 'cause I know it's grown since I've been. What's the total number you have on?
We could pull that up, but somewhere in the 380 range, 84
So obviously
on health insurance.
with salaries, but obviously provide quality health plus for draw a lot of employees. So we want to make sure that we keep healthy. Track those full. So,
To manage this, I mean, with claims history, there's not a real sense of urgency. Other than can get into consortium, it's going to be an opportunity hard to pass up because the rates are going to be so much lower than what we currently have. So it would be a significant savings to our members. But other than that, it would be definitely hard to pass up. But there's nothing screaming at us right now with claims data that makes it a true sense of urgency. But you're always trying to better the program and get it to sustain and last longer. Future, I mean, our family rates right now are $2,400 a month. Employees paying 25%. That's only going to increase year after year. So when does it become too much of a premium for it not to be beneficial as a member? Paying $500 per person right now, whether you're going to the doctor or not, definitely beneficial to some, but vast majority probably not getting that benefit and that value back. So are there other things where we can lower the premium and put money aside of when you are going to use it? So those are things that we're looking at and trying to make it more holistic for higher membership. It'll be a good discussion. I think we have good options, so it's always good to have options and a place to go. Sitting in a real situation of this is what we were looking at and we had no other alternative. Good thing is we do have alternatives, some sort of cost savings to health insurance. Any other questions on the financials?
thank you very much, Mr. Roberts.
Yeah.
And we're going to move on to our superintendent's report this evening.
Well, thank you, Mr. Butler. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to all our viewers. I do have a few items that I would like to talk about tonight, and the first one's going to be Student of the Quarter. So this is our third recognition of the Student of the Quarter for the 21-22 school year. This recognition began 14 years ago as a way for the Board of Education to recognize students who demonstrate their best, be it academically or in terms of school citizenship. Many of our students are recognized in other ways at the individual buildings, and the Student of the Quarter is just one more way for the board to say thank you to our students, their parents, and their staff members at each building for such excellent effort. So tonight, we are going to start with Mr. Eric Riddle at Indian Trail. Principal Eric Riddle. Mr. Riddle.
Thank you and good evening. I will start off with my two Student of the Quarter winners in kindergarten are Mason Mazur and Owen Odenthal. My two first grade students are Mila Rain and AJ Gilbert. And my two second grade students are Njai Kane and Charity Cummings. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Riddle. Congratulations to Indian Trail Student of the Quarter recipients. Next on the docket is Principal Mr. Max Lolothan from Winchester Trail.
Good evening. Our recipients this quarter are from grade 3, Hadley Singleton and James Kiptu. From grade 4, Ava Winkler and Larry Hubbard. In grade 5, Zoe Osei Buwache and Kamal Dahawood. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lawthan, and again, congratulations to the Winchester Trail recipients. On to the middle school, we have Principal Mrs. Kelly Zivchak.
You're taller than me. Good evening. The following students have been recognized by their teachers for displaying one or more of the competencies of our Portrait of a Graduate. Starting with 6th grade, from Team 6-3, we have Jason Berner and Riley Wilford. From Team 7-3, Joshua Vandergriff and Peyton Sturgill. And Team 8-3, Carson Long and Sasha Sanders. Congratulations to all of our middle school students.
Great. This is a check certificate. And on to the high school, last but not least, of course, Principal Mrs. Amy Warren.
Good evening, everyone. It is my honor to congratulate the following students for getting Student of the Quarter. 9th graders Kylie Valdez and Hayden Stockbridge. 10th graders Jaden Hewley and Hannah Webb. 11th graders Riley Daly and Ariana Gilmore. And then 12th graders Ryan Atulo and Lauren Snyder. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And again, congratulations to all the students who received the Student of the Quarter. We were going to have it in person, but with the play going on, everything was kind of, the stage was not set up properly. So probably we'll continue with doing the Student of the Quarter this way one more time, but next year we'll go back to in. So I always like that event.
It's the best way to do it.
Coming. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. But again, congratulations to the students, their families, and their teachers. Next, I'd like to recognize our Purple Star Award winner, Winchester Trail. Congratulations to Winchester Trail Elementary School, who has earned the Purple Star Award for demonstrating commitment and support for children and families who are connected to the U.S. military. Winchester Trail is one of 263 Ohio schools to receive the Purple Star Award in 2022 and one of 431 active Ohio Purple Star Award schools. Winchester Trail's designation as a Purple Star school is active until 2025. Previously, they earned it in 2018, and currently, Canal Winchester High School is an active Purple Star school. And so, congratulations to Mr. Lawthan and the Winchester Trail staff, and Mrs. Dennison, I believe, who helps you out with that recognition and everything. So that's a great award. And from Governor Mike DeWine, he states that Purple Star schools are just another example of how the proud tradition we have of honoring our servicemen and women, and we will continue to do that. Congratulations, Winchester Trail. Any questions? All right. Last but not least, just since 1949, May has been known as Mental Health Awareness Month. And starting in 2006, on May 7th, it was declared Children's Mental Health Month, or Day, Awareness Day, to shed light on the importance of mental health from birth through young adult years. This May also marks 25 months since we've been in this pandemic. And it has had a dramatic and sometimes negative impact across all states and communities. Many students, families, and school staff members are still struggling to navigate these changes. Students have experienced school and learning disruptions. We've had significant mental and behavior issues and challenges because of either whether it's isolation, trauma, grief, loss, pressure at home that they might not even be aware of. So it's a combination of everything. Sadly, over the last few months, several tragic incidences have occurred here in Canal Winchester that are impacting our schools and our community. As educators and school officials, we know you as parents want what is best for your children. We also know, and knowing what to look for and what to do should you have concerns about your child is one of the first steps in prevention. So we're asking for help from our parents that if they see some signs of their kids struggling, to do what they can to contact the school. And some of these struggling signs, I'm not going to go through all of them, is, if your child is feeling very sad or withdrawn for more than 2 weeks, if they're trying to harm themselves or others, if they're experiencing sudden or overwhelming fear for no reason, they're getting in fights, if you see drug use or alcohol use or severe mood swings, if you as a parent or even we as educators, if we see this, that's our key for us to contact someone. Whether it's a school counselor, a school nurse, a teacher, a school administrator, a mental health provider that you may go to, or other healthcare professional. Because really the first step in getting help is trying to identify their problem. And so we're trying to build our mental health team to help out, not just our kids, but our staff too. So because this affects all of us. Here in Canal Winchester, our focus is on developing the whole child from academic to social, emotional, and behavior learning, including mental health awareness. This coming school year, our goal is to add several positions to strengthen our mental health team so that we can provide additional support to our students and their families. We're going to add additional counselors at Indian Trail and the high school, one additional counselor at each of those buildings. We're going to add, hopefully, an additional nationwide children's health clinical counselor, and this will put one in each building. We're also hopefully going to add a clinical counseling intern from area colleges. Right now we have 3, and hopefully we're anticipating a 4th one. So once again, we'll have 1 in each building. We're adding an additional, hopefully, an additional mental health specialist that will put 1 in each building. And then overall, we'll have 1 board certified behavior specialist district-wide. So basically, what this means that every school is going to have a nationwide children's hospital counselor, a clinical counseling intern, a district mental health specialist, along with a shared social worker and a shared board certified behavior. And so we're trying to do our best to bring people into our buildings to provide support and resources for our kids and for their families. We know there's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of preventive action that we have to take too, and we're working on that. And we'll have more. I'll have a more detailed report later on about our mental health program as we go into 22-23 years. Empowering all our students for success goes beyond the classroom. As the pressure of life continues to mount on our children and their families, we will continue to focus on the whole child by providing the prevention and clinical services needed to overcome obstacles and to become the best version of themselves. If the kids are feeling good about themselves, they're going to do well in school. So not just in school, but in their communities and so forth. So the mental health aspect is a huge concern for us, and we're putting a lot of money, ESSER money we're using for a lot of these positions to bring these help out. Questions, comments?
I have a question. What is the current status of the conversation and meeting that we had with Jewel regarding the possibility of bringing on a program with mental health services that would help parents and students? Because a lot of times mental health doesn't just affect the student, it affects the whole household.
Yep, that is part of the plan that we're putting together to see where it fits in and how it fits in and if it's going to fit in.
Okay.
And so that's something we're going to work on as we get through this. We want to get our people in place first and then talk to our key people with Mrs. Wojcik, the social worker, and along with these other behavior specialists. So we have a solid plan together moving forward. That's the goal. Any other questions or comments? All right, and just a few updates. This Friday is prom, so good luck, Mrs. Warren, at prom this Friday. And then graduation again is Friday, May 20th. It's at 6 p.m. at World Harvest Church. And believe it or not, someone said there's about 27 school days left in the school year. It's hard to believe how fast the year is going by. So that's all I have for now. And as always, make it a great day or not. The choice is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cutler. And we're going to move on to district reports this evening. Does anyone have any questions this evening about any of the district reports? No? No questions about district reports? We're going to move on to the consent agenda this evening. So I'm going to need a motion on the consent agenda.
So move.
And I'll second that. Mrs. Hunt?
Thank you. We'll start with item number 1, minutes from the March 21st meeting. Number 2 is donations. We have 2 donations this month. We have a $500 donation from Mr. and Mrs. Steve Starr to the Gene Scholarship Grant. We have a $100 donation from SA Choir to the Performing Arts Boosters. So we want to thank those individuals for those donations. 3 certified personnel. We have a couple resignations. We do have a non-renewal. I just want to take a minute to note what this non-renewal is. It is because it was a temporary hire for the year. So coming in, we hired this individual for a 1-year contract, knowing that we would not need the position at the end of the year. And so that is what this is. It's not a non-renewal in the sense of any discipline or any for any other purposes other than the position is no longer needed. So just wanted to make a note of that. And then we have 3 teacher recommendations. We have 2 teachers that will be at Winchester Trail. One of those positions is due to transfer, and the other is due to a resignation. The other position in the middle there for school counselor at Harvest Prep, that position is a Harvest Prep position. There are auxiliary funds that pay for that. Ms. McClure has worked at Harvest Prep for many of years, and they are just bringing that position to us to hire through the auxiliary funds. So that's funding that's not coming from our general fund, that's coming from their auxiliary funds. And we have a stipend for Jerry Lynn Bombush to serve as NHS advisor for the remainder of the year. Number 4, classified personnel. We do have a leave of absence, and we are making recommendations. We have 2 new bus drivers, so yay. Again, anybody listening or anybody out in the crowd, if you want to be a bus driver, reach out to Dr. Bruning. And then we also have a building secretary at Indian Trail, Riley Cotterman. We also have some substitute recommendations, 2 sub-bus drivers and a sub-custodian. And we are approving the mental health interns that were mentioned by Mr. Sotler for next year. They will work for us at $10 an hour, and they are going through their internship with the university. So that's the agreement that we have with them.
Which university?
These 3 are actually with Ohio State. However, we have branched out. So when we first started the program with Dr. Dunn, all the interns were from Ohio State. Now we are pulling from different universities. So we're actually expanding our reach, which is great. Number 5, supplemental personnel. We are hiring David Locker as the faculty manager for the spring. And number 6, we have an overnight field trip request for David King for Business Professionals of America. This is the National Leadership Conference that will be held in Dallas, Texas.
Additional questions about the agenda this evening?
I do. Mrs. Hunt?
Yes.
I have a correction to an item from the minutes from the March 21st meeting. It's G2, private tuition contract. My vote was actually a yes, but it's indicated as a...
I'll let my assistant about that.
Okay, thank you.
Good catch, Ally, thank you.
Welcome.
Any other additional questions about the consent agenda?
I
She
tried to
put
read
that in there
everything.
just to test, didn't she? She passed. I knew she would.
No questions about the consent agenda. Mr. Roberts, if you want to roll.
Mr. Krueger?
Yes.
Beller?
Yes.
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Sally?
Yes.
Passes 5-0. And we're going to move on to our action items. So first action item we have up is employment of administrative personnel. This is going to be to approve the employment of Malia Anderson as assistant principal to serve as a preschool coordinator on a 2-year contract. And administrative salary is category 6, level 7, about $96,000 beginning on August. So I need a motion on action item number.
So move.
Second.
Actually, Mrs. Anderson has been in this position for the last couple years, but it was not an administrative position. As you know, the preschool program is really a school within a school. There's a lot of rules and regulations that go along with this. And so one of the things that Mrs. Anderson was not able to do, though, was to evaluate her staff. And so now this gives her the ability to have full control over there and evaluate staff. And our preschool program continues to grow. So this is truly a needed position for the district. And Mrs. Anderson has done a great job for us the last several years. And she'll be great. Continue to do a good job for us.
You said allow her more flexibility in her position, so she can more than what, obviously she's doing a lot now, but this just gives she's going to be making the same amount of money. We'll be able to use this as a absolutely that's going to be a value for her.
Just to confirm, there's no conflict of interest her ability to both evaluate her staff and do whatever. Do both.
She will now. She will be able to evaluate the staff now. She was not able to do that prior to.
And there's no conflict of interest in her being able to.
No. Prior to, she was on teacher on special assignment. So in theory, she was on the same level as the teachers that were working in the classroom. So she oversaw the program, but really didn't oversee the staff. And so this will allow her to oversee the staff in that program as well. I mean, she pretty much does the entire program, other than that, the evaluation of staff. And there's other pieces of it with it also will take then off Mr. Lawthan and Ms. Freeze at the building level as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other additional questions about action item number 1? Roberts?
Kruger?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Barnes?
Yes.
Butler?
Yes.
Sally?
Yes.
5-0. And we're going to move on to action item number 2, which is our new bus purchases. So I'm going to need a motion on action item number 2.
I so move.
Second.
All right. As always, we are purchasing buses. And so we have 3 buses on here. 3 of them are 78 passenger. 1 is a 48 passenger. I believe that's a special ed bus that we are going to have in this there to replace our older buses that are in our inventory. Again, it's up to and not to exceed the $400,000 mark. We're $399,951. Hopefully, we'll get another grant next year like we did this year. That will help offset the cost.
The grant last year was like 1.5 buses or so. Is that-
150,000.
In the plans to get 2, we got the grant, we got an additional 3, so 5 buses. And then 4 this year, so 9 in 2 years. Our bus fleet's starting to be fairly new, but with the difference in 4-tier structure, we're going to be adding more mileage. Definitely make sure the bus cycle going.
How do we, what's the process for removing the buses from our fleet, and how do we kind of get rid of them?
Dr. Bruni, you want to speak to that?
What I do is it's not totally age, but obviously age is the number one criteria you look at. But what I also do is I track the expenses that we have on a bus and how much it costs to repair them. Sometimes we end up with a situation where we've got, say, a 15 to 17-year-old bus that I know is going to take $30,000 to. That becomes a bus that's not very practical to fix, and so we put it out, and if anyone wants it, we would offer it for sale. But what happens is now churches and other preschools and the like that used to take those buses now have to have an inspection by the State Highway Patrol that's the same as what we have to go through. So anyone that takes a bus from us, if it's going to cost us $30,000, is going to cost them $30,000 to fix it. So we normally don't get too many people that take that. Once in a while, and we may have a bus I'm looking to get rid of this time, we will have individuals that are interested, and at that point then what we'll do is a sealed bid process where we state a minimum price that they have to have. We'll advertise the date that it's going to be due, and then we'll collect the sealed bids and then open the sealed bids.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Bruni?
Yeah, do questions about action item number 2? Roberts?
Mr. George?
Yes.
Sally?
Yes.
Barnes?
Yes.
Butler?
Yes.
Kruger?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. And we're going to move on to action item number 3, which is a property resolution. This is going to be a motion to approve the resolution in support of necessary action to prevent the detachment of the property located at the Bixby and Rager Roads as presented. I'm going to need a motion on action item number 3.
I'd like to know if we're going to have any discussion about it before.
Yeah.
So moved.
Motion.
And then I'll second that.
Okay, I think it's probably best, not that we want to read the whole thing, but probably best to go through it so everyone has an understanding. A lot of whereases in here, so please be patient. Resolution 4-22, whereas the Canal Winchester Local School District Board of Education, the Columbus City School District Board of Education and other area schools districts are parties to an extended joint agreement among and between the boards of education of certain school districts of Franklin County, Ohio, dated June 29, 1992, and amended effective June 15, 2012, together known as the Win-Win Agreement. And whereas the Win-Win Agreement has entered into to provide boundary stability and predictability between participating school districts. And whereas under the terms of the Win-Win Agreement, certain territory previously annexed by the City of Columbus is protected from transfer to the Columbus City School District. And whereas under the terms of the Win-Win Agreement, future territory located within the Canal Winchester Local School District that is annexed by the City of Columbus is automatically transferred from the Canal Winchester Local School District to the Columbus City School District. And whereas the Canal Winchester City Council entered to a pre-annexation agreement with the owners of a certain property located at the intersection of Bixby and Rager Roads. And whereas the Canal Winchester City Council passed ordinance 25-054 to rezone said approximately 70.625 acres located on Bixby and Rager Roads, and subsequently annex the property within resolution 22-003. And whereas a referendum petition was filed to allow the residents of Canal Winchester to vote on whether to approve or disapprove ordinance 21.054. And whereas under the terms of the pre-annexation agreement, the filing of a referendum petition is a condition that permits the property owners to petition for detachment of said property from the City of Canal Winchester. And whereas if said property is detached from the City of Canal Winchester, the property could be annexed into the City of Columbus, which would result in the transfer of the property from Canal Winchester Local School District to the Columbus City School District. And whereas if the property is transferred to the Columbus City School District, the Canal Winchester Local Schools will lose substantial tax revenue generated by the property. And whereas the Canal Winchester Local School District Board of Education desires to protect its tax base for the benefit of the residents and school children of the district. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Canal Winchester Local School District Board of Education urges the Canal Winchester City Council to take any action necessary to prevent the detachment of the property located at Bixby Rager Road. End of resolution. So we know it is not our authority or the right. We have no decision-making authority when it comes to growth, commercial growth in the community. However, when a piece of land is in our territory and it is being detaxed, it is our responsibility to try and protect that piece of land, because we know that there is revenue to that in regards to taxes. That's what that is what this resolution is all about, is protecting our school property and making sure that it's not given to another school district where we could lose substantial tax revenue generated by that property.
You had referred to the win-win agreement. So for those people out there who are listening who might not understand this, right now, based on the win-win agreement, if that land was detached from our school district, that land automatically transfers to whatever said entity decides to annex that land. So it would automatically go there, and essentially we would lose out on that tax revenue, and obviously it's part of our school district. They decided to go to another Canal Winchester.
That is correct.
For me, obviously, and again, I respect Canal Winchester and their zoning, and I'm not going to step on that because that's their decision to make. But for us, we have to look at it from the holistic perspective of what this does to our school district. And obviously, this resolution, we're putting it out there, obviously, because we feel like it protects our boundaries and obviously it protects our tax base. So one thing for me, I've been here on the board, this is the end of my second term, and we have not had to go out and ask taxpayers for new money. And that's really been important to us, that we be good fiscal stewards and be responsible with the money that the taxpayers are giving us. And one of the things that's important to me is that we do protect our tax dollars and our tax base. As I was thinking about this, one thing that popped in my mind was, I know last week Columbus City Schools got hit with an $11 million fine for transportation. I believe Groveport is right next to us. They're going through the same issue. So revenue is obviously important to all school districts. So for us, it's really important that we do protect our property and our tax revenue. And our taxpayers have done a wonderful job between the income tax, property taxes. So one thing what we've tried to do, and I know for me as a school board member, is protect that taxpayer money they're giving us, because obviously it's not our money, it's the taxpayers. So protecting our borders and protecting our tax base is what's really is my focus in this particular, obviously what we're going to be voting on. So for me, that's where my perspective comes from. So obviously, I know quite a few members of City Council, and I respect what they do. So I'm not going to sit up here and tell them what they should or shouldn't be doing on their end. But obviously, for our resolution, for me, it's about protecting our tax base and protecting our boundaries. Because obviously, as we continue to grow, and obviously, if you've seen our district, we've seen housing going up. So we know the new students are coming. So for us to be able to grow our tax base and grow our district and have conversations, whether that be adding on to our high school, performing arts centers, and do that without burdening the taxpayers, it's really important that our tax base be. So that's my perspective, and I know other board members are probably going to obviously share how they feel about this resolution, but for me as board president, that's my perspective. So just protecting our taxpayers and making sure that we keep our revenue in the district, because this is our community. So I would hate to see our land be annexed to Columbus and lose that control, because obviously I feel like we have a really good thing going on here in Canal, Winchester, so I want to protect that. So that's my 2 cents. So I'm going to get off my soapbox and let other people share how they feel.
So under the win-win agreement, if that property is developed and it becomes housing, let's say they build a residential neighborhood there, those students would be Canal Winchester local school students?
If Columbus annexes, they would go to Columbus.
But the way it stands now, if that becomes that, so those.
That,
okay.
yes, now, sorry.
Okay.
If it was residential.
If it became residential,
Yeah,
right.
that is correct.
Okay.
If property is detached from us, do we ever foresee that coming back?
I don't
Will
know.
it ever come back to any agreement?
It would be a Lucas Hare question with city development. But the way I understood it was effective May 2nd. If something's not done, it will be detached due to the referendum that was placed on that. It would be very difficult for Canal Winchester City to get that back at that point. That's my understanding. City could confirm that. And just to be clear, this isn't a resolution to support warehouses or industrial development. This is urging the city to do whatever's necessary to keep that property from being detached. Because what happens is it allows Columbus or any other city to come in and annex that land, and not just that land. It opens the door up, annex land to the north and to the south. Columbus City is not able to do that right now because they do not touch those borders. If it is detached from Canal Winchester City, then they can annex it, and then they would touch those borders to where they could annex just over 700 acres of additional land. So it opens up the opportunity for a lot more. So Canal Winchester City would lose the opportunity to develop that in future years. I don't think they want to right now, but I don't think anyone knows where we're heading in 20 years to where you want that land developed. But the thing we do know, if they attach, they will lose control of that, and anything can be developed at that point, not just on those parcels on Bixby and Rager, but north and south.
So, in full disclosure, am on the City of Columbus Greater Southeast Area Commission. And I really hate that the school board even get involved in this. I totally agree with the fact that we need to protect the school board's interests, our taxpayers' interests. I live in the City of Columbus. My kids all graduated from Canal. I'm one of those borderline residents whose kids have gone to Canal. I got on the school board because I've disliked how the north side of 33 has always been treated, with the fact that we're on the north side of 33. We're not really in Canal, but our kids go to Canal. And so I have mixed feelings about this. I have mixed thoughts about how this has gone down. I feel like voters should get the right, based on all of the legislation and the laws that give people the right to vote against or for something, because they have followed all of the legislation and the laws that allow them to put this referendum on the ballot. They've gone through the process. At the same time, I know that it's important that we protect the taxpayers and we protect the revenues that our school district needs to get or acquire. It has been approved and passed within the council, and I don't really agree with how it came about, but it has been passed, but the referendum's also been done. But I think that it's important for us to understand that while this is something that is revenue to our school, it's about $150,000 for our school district right now. In 15 years, it would go up, of course, because the way that it's all set up, after 15 years, we would start producing more revenues from it.
Can I make a point of order? I apologize.
I'm sorry.
I need to make a point of order. And Vanjie, please don't take this personally, but I believe you need to recuse yourself from discussion or vote on this because there is a potential of a conflict of interest.
I probably won't vote on it one way or the other. I just want to give my opinion.
Right, but if you recuse yourself, and I believe you shouldn't be a part of the discussion or the vote because of the conflict of interest.
Okay, well, I do think I can discuss it. I may not vote on it, but I can discuss it. Is there a reason why I can't discuss it? Okay, so I probably won't vote on it, but I do want to discuss it. I wanted to tell what I understand. So, you know, with the amount of money that's included with it, and I think that it's important that we understand every bit of it from both sides of it, and I don't want to see residents taxes increased because of any land being taken away from the Canal Winchester School Board. I think it's important that we try to keep the property in the Canal Winchester School District for the purposes of the taxes. At the same time, I also want to make sure that we are protecting our children. I watch our children walk across the bridge. I've watched the increase in traffic. I've watched the increase of trucks parked on our residential streets on the north side of 33. I've watched our trucks parked on 33 getting on the ramps, and I've seen many, many accidents on that side of 33 since the additional construction. I also know that there is other things that's coming along in the pikes for improved infrastructure for both Gender Road and for 33. I keep up on that. I go to the ODOT meetings, and I don't know how many of our residents are participating or involved in that, but I do go to the ODOT meetings. I go to the City of Columbus meetings that are going to tell us what's going on and what construction is happening. So knowing that a lot of these things are coming eventually, for now and for the near future, it just concerns me about the kids that go to Canal Winchester schools that live on the north side of 33. There's probably over 25% of our school district goes on the north side of 33. So what concerns me about that is knowing the safety of our kids and making sure that when we approve or agree or to a lot of this construction, that we understand how that's going to impact our school district. So that is how I'm viewing this, and I just wanted to voice my opinion on how and why I am in agreement with what the school district wants to do, and I'm not in disagreement. I just want us to understand where the disagreement is coming from. It's not the school district, it's not the tax revenues, it's the infrastructure and the safety of our kids when things like this are approved that affect our school district.
Reasons you stated, I think, are why it's vital for Canal Winchester City to ensure that the detachment does not happen. Because if they lose control of the property and the property south and north, maybe Columbus doesn't annex it, but I think we are all aware that they're probably going to, and they're going to go ahead and build the industrial buildings anyway. Not to mention they're probably going to develop the other properties north and south. At that point, it's out of everyone's control. It's going to be all the way up against Canal Winchester border. I think it's safe to say that it's better working with Canal Winchester City than it is Columbus City, and to trust City Council here in Canal would be a much better bet. That's developed the best way, safer way than it would if we were to allow Columbus City to get it and annex it and develop it.
And I was going to add on that because I was listening to the meeting and you guys, council, did a great job, and they were kind of throwing some different numbers around. I heard different members of, but for me, obviously, as a board member, we talked about hiring mental health staff. We talked about teachers. I don't know if you guys have heard about us rolling out an incentive for our bus drivers because, and Dr. Bruni can talk about that, because it has been a challenge during COVID and post-COVID to be able to bring in staff and bus drivers. So the revenue that we were able to generate and we're going to be able to generate from this project allows us to do those things, which is add more staff and mental health. You know, like I said, we talked about our bus driver incentive program. That's something I'm excited about because we know that there's going to be a need there moving forward. So all those things allow us to continue to grow as a district without overburdening our taxpayers and asking for new money constantly. So we've been very blessed here that I think it's been over 10 years that we've ballot. And obviously the plan moving forward is to keep it that way. So to be able to do that, we have to find additional streams of revenue. And I think that this is an opportunity for us to bring revenue into our district without having to add additional services onto our school district. So when projects like this come around, I know it's not for us to say what it gets zoned here or there, but obviously protecting our boundaries, protecting our tax revenue is going to be, you know, it's important to me as a board member. So, you know, obviously we are all entitled to our different opinions. So for me, obviously, if this land is detached from Canal Winchester, that we know that we're obviously going to be losing that territory and we're going to lose that tax revenue. That's the one thing that we. So that's the reason why, obviously, I am in support of this resolution. I think it's important that we protect our.
I too, I just wanted to add, I am also in support of the property resolution because I believe it's in the best interest of our school district to support all and any measures that can be taken to retain the said property in order to prevent the substantial loss of future revenue for our schools. My role as a board member includes providing financial leadership as well as being able to be forward-thinking in our decision-making with the best interests of our school children in mind. I just wanted to reiterate that a quality education is directly correlated with effective and efficient management of available resources. So in that respect, I too agree with my board member colleague, Mr. George, in that Ms. Barnes should recuse herself from the decision, from the voting part of it. I do believe that there is a conflict, respectful.
And just to respond to that, I don't feel there's a conflict of interest because I never said I was going to vote against it. I just wanted to give my information on both sides of it.
Correct, but you also hold a position as the commissioner for the Greater Southeast.
I don't know that that requires me to recuse myself. I checked with the City of Columbus. It doesn't require me to recuse myself from their perspective. And I checked with the commission. It doesn't require me to recuse myself from their position. And I did express my thoughts to them as well, for the record.
So, Mr. Butler probably took on all the speaking points that so not much for me to say, which is fine. But I did hear last night about $150,000. Barnes was there as well, and in hearing all the mental health folks that we're trying to hire and keep stable because the ESSER funds are not going to be here forever. And we want to retain those folks, $150,000 of that up front, that could retain two employees that could help better our children. I know they're talking on Facebook and such about, hey, there's a percentage of $150,000 compared to our budget, $41 million. Not much, that's pennies. Well, mental health specialists are not pennies to our children and our families. So I feel that's a vital $150,000 that is well spent. I think we need to have that. In 15 years, Nick, what kind of revenues, if the two facilities that were talked about on that property, in 15 years after the abatement, what kind of revenues are we looking at? I know you had some numbers and I don't have them in front of me.
It's estimated right now, 15 years out, but it's estimated to bring in about $400,000 in tax
per year?
Per year.
Okay.
So is that just Canal or Canal and Grove?
That's just the school portion.
Just for Canal side of it?
Yeah, because our industrial value right now is $19.5 million. That piece of property alone is going to be assessed value of about $8.5 million. So it makes up about 45% of our current industrial value.
I thought I heard last night about 150 to 160.
That's the upfront.
Yeah, that's the sidebar agreement. There's a 15-year tax abatement with a 30-year non-school TIF. So the entire property is tax abated for 15 years. But after 15, the school is held harmless, and we will start receiving our funding on the full value of the property.
And so I'm just not looking at that property. You had mentioned earlier, before the meeting started, when we were talking, there are different properties that are coming off of that.
Correct.
And so when you add all of those industrial properties or value properties in our school district boundaries, that starts to add up over time. So it's kind of a domino effect. It's kind of nice it's spread out where they're coming online, if you will, at different times, but they're going to be funding, which is just going to be huge for our district.
Yeah, you want the abatements to come in periods like now to where we don't need the money. Now, 15 years seems like a long time, but I explained before the meeting started that we have $532,000 of abatements that are all going to be rolling off 2028 and before. That's not that far away to where we pick up a substantial additional revenue. Then we also have properties that were added behind Depot. We've got phase 1 of the North Point project on Bixby and Rager that's already existing, where we have bilateral agreements in place for those, and those buildings are also valued at a very high number that's going to generate. So between those properties, if this was to get completed between the phase 1 and phase 2 and the properties behind Home Depot, you're talking over $1.5 million when the abatements roll off in 15 years. That's substantial growth that you need to maintain. Because we don't look at it from, like you said, we don't look at it from perspective of what is that for your percentage of budget. We look at it from expenditures are X right now, but they're going to increase, so we need revenues to also increase along with those. The only way for school districts' revenues to increase is either levy new taxes or you need values to increase. If we stop development, we stop growth, you're relying strictly on residential growth, and you're relying strictly on residential valuations. It needs to be a mixture. I understand that industrial growth is not popular, commercial growth is not popular, but you need it to offset residential and agricultural piece of your district.
That's all I got. Like I said, everyone else kind of jumped on what I was thinking. And as far as you voting bans, which tell you no decision.
Thank you.
So I have a question, just kind of does this require 2 readings? And if so, do we need to pass it as an emergency approval?
No,
the resolution. It doesn't? Okay. Okay.
As is.
Have any questions for Mr. Roberts about action item number 4 in this property resolution? If there are no other questions, Mr. Roberts?
Ms. Talley?
Yes.
Butler?
Yes.
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Kruger?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. And we are going to move on to our discussion items. So, in the discussion items, we do have the first reading of board policy. So, Hunt?
All right, hold on. Get to follow that. No, I will say welcome to the policy committee, Ms. Talley.
Thank you.
We enjoyed having you, and I will tell you, earlier she caught an error in minutes, and we actually will be reviewing a policy that we're talking about tonight, getting some more questions for something that she had found, so.
I knew she was the right one for the job.
Yes, yes. No offense, Mr. Metzler, however.
Error in the minutes.
So I'll briefly summarize board policies. We'll go in order here. So for the first batch, you'll see there staff dress and grooming and dress and grooming. Interesting enough, the last time we've updated this policy or these policies was in 2003. So you can imagine that there's quite a bit of change that has come just in dress code in general in schools. So this language has been added to state what is legally required with regard to enforcing the dress code in a non-discriminatory, uniform manner and affirming an employee's right to dress in accordance with their gender identity. And the implementation of these measures is required in accordance with the stated principles within Title IX and Title VII. 2271 College Credit Plus. This policy is revised to include requiring male students who are 18 years or older to register with the Selective Service System in order to participate in the College Credit Plus program. Blended learning policy is revised because of changes that Senate Bill 229 enacted, basically emphasizing the requirement for non-computer-based learning opportunities that must be included in any blended learning opportunities. So basically that's saying that you can't just throw a student online and say that's blended learning. There needs to be also some non-computer based instruction. The administrator vacation leave and vacation and holidays policies, those policies reflect Juneteenth as an approved holiday. 5772 weapons, this policy has been revised to include the most recent definition of weapon. If you recall, the last time we had policy, which I believe was a couple months ago, we approved a batch of policies on weapons, updating, again, the definition. So this was one policy that was left out in Neola that they caught. 6110, grant funds. This policy has been revised to include the latest changes to the Education Department General Administrative Regulations. There was, again, a couple years ago, we went through quite a few revisions for the Edgar funds. This is one, and then also when you move to the next page, 6114 and 6325 are also in regard to the updating of the Edgar regulations. 6423, use of credit card. This has been revised to comply with requirements to include the procedure for credit card issuance and reissuance, as well as cancellation of credit cards. 7217 is another weapons policy that, again, was missed during the last policy update. We talked about this in the last time we discussed. We are not arming staff members outside of our school resource officer. It just, the language was required to be adopted to reflect current law. But we have no, right now we're not looking at arming any staff or employees. And 8500 food service, this policy has been revised to include appropriate references to conflict of interest and ethics policies that apply to food services, procurement practices, and clarifies the food milk substitution provisions.
Ms. Hunt, if there was the administration wanted to arm anyone, would they have to come before the school board to get approval on that? Or does this allow them to do it without notifying us?
We would absolutely come in front of the school board for that. That would not be a decision that we would make without coming in front of the school board.
Thank you.
That is a board decision.
Yep. And just so everyone knows, those policies that I just reviewed, those are all Neola. So Neola made those recommendations to us, and then we accepted them. Moving on to district requests, there's 3 policies: severance pay, military service, and cell phone allowance. All of these policies were updated, the first 2 for sure, to reflect current practice. Severance pay, at the end of negotiations last year, we did change our severance pay. So these policies have been updated to reflect that. And then military service, we have always honored up to 5 years of military service on a pay scale. And our policy did not include that for our classified employees. It's a practice we've always done. We went ahead and added that into policy. And then the cell phone allowance, we had one individual who had a board-owned cell phone, and that individual retired, I believe, gosh, it's been probably over a year now. And so we just removed the section that said board-owned cellular devices so that somebody wouldn't get hired and say, but it says you have them, we don't. So we just updated those to reflect practice. Any questions for me over policy?
Does the 7217 weapons policy, so we've got the resource officer. Does that policy apply to the resource officer, or do we assume that the resource officer has the training because of his status?
Correct. Resource officer is separate.
Okay.
This one here specifically to say, it not only says we could arm, but it also states that somebody who is in the military can also keep it in their car as long as they have identification and they store it safely, and they're not allowed to bring it in our buildings. So these policies update that language.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Very much, Mr. And I'm going to move on to executive session. Is there a need to enter into executive session this evening?
No, sir.
There's no need to enter an executive session. We'll move on to our closing items. Are there any announcements?
No.
Okay,
No
wonderful. All right, so I'm going to need a motion to adjourn this evening.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion. We have a second. Ms. Roberts?
Barnes?
Yes.
Yes. Butler?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Sally?
Yes.
Passes 5-0, and we are adjourned at the time is
8:28.
8:28. Thank you very much.